video and the code samples, right, for all the files, right? So I have already shared all the file samples here. So you can just keep them in some your own dictionary, right? So that I can continue now. Yeah. So we were checking yesterday that serializable and deserialization, serialization and deserialization. So you guys have any doubt in any part of serialization, deserialization? Like any doubt in it? No?
A quick question. Could you perhaps give a real-life example of when we would use this? From my understanding, serialization is you're trying to transmit an object, but you're trying to get it through using bytes to another. Is that correct?
Exactly. That is correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when would you use this in a real-life situation?
Yeah, in real life, let us say, yeah. So there are two different type of applications which you can actually build using Java, using any technology as such, right? The first one can be a web application, right, or a desktop-based application, right? Two things. So in desktop-based application, let us take an example of desktop-based application, which means you have to install your you have to install the app in your PC. Let us take an example of Skype as such. Skype is something which is a standalone application where you have to install your application in your local laptop, and then whenever you log into that Skype, it will be actually connected to the server. Am I right? Yeah. So at that moment, what we are doing is we are trying to connect an application being installed in your local machine to the server. So what does it mean is, whenever you try to log in, whenever you provide any username and password, or whenever you just give some chat message, or whenever you want to call someone, so that protocol or the message should be transferred from your machine to the server. So it will be done through over the network, right? That is the first point. Second point, over the network, if you want to send a bigger information, if it is a small information like username and password, you can just send it like this. Just say user name is equal to xyz, right? Some semicolon, some delimiter you can just place. Let us say semicolon is a delimiter, and just say pw2 is equal to something like some 1 2 3, let us say, right? You can just frame this small string, right, and convert it into bytes and send it out. That is possible. You don't have to write a bigger class to store something called username and password, convert, serialize it, and then send. Yeah. But in real-time situations, right, it won't be this small. Your packet will contain, packet in the sense the class which contains all these fields, right, will contain at least, depends on, with respect to the requirement, right, it contains minimum of 20 or more than that. So at that time, you can't take a chance creating a normal string where you may lose somewhere. You may lose, if you lose something called delimiter placing in between any two of your tokens, right, the whole packet request is gone. At that time, you have to make your request as a set. So here our set is nothing but a class. What we are doing is, whatever is a request elements or a response elements, we are arranging all of them as a variables in a class. Now if you want to actually pass that class over the network, then you have to do something called convert it into bytes. So for converting that into bytes, we use something called serialization. Now here, whenever you log in into your desktop application, if you want to send any packet, we will be sending through serialized packet. Go for any trading product, let us say, as such, go for any trading product, what they'll do is, they'll first serialize the class, whatever they want to send the message, and then on that serialization, what they'll do is, they'll try to apply one more security called encryption security. Encryption security is what it makes is, it will again tweak all the bytes with respect to its own logic. See, all these encryption like libraries will be a third party libraries, right? They'll be third party, and no one knows what exactly is encryption logic being applied, right? So what happens, you just have to use that library, pass the bytes into that library, that will be sending your tweaked byte to server. and in the server you will be using the same encryption security library which will decode the bytes. You got the all byte buffer. Once you got the byte buffer, again deserialize it and map into your class. So why we are doing all these things are for the security reasons. So let us say if someone is hacking in between your client and server, right, he'll be getting the information which he'll never be able to decode, right? Because in banking, finance, or insurances, medicals, and tradings, right, take anything, the message, each and every message is an important message, right? So even if there is a hacker who want to get something out of the message if you are sending, right, it should not be conveyed as a right message. So as such, take one example of a cookie. Let us say you are saving a cookie in a browser, right, which is not a secured one. If you are saving some cookie of some, let us say if your email or your bank account, something, right, which means even a cookie can be hacked. I hope you know that, right? Over the network, even a cookie can be hacked from a machine. So for that, what happens is, even a cookie information, so when we come to advanced, right, you will understand what is a cookie. Even a cookie information can be serialized. I mean, even this cookie will be a normal class in Java, which again you have to mention a separate class, serialize that class, apply security, and send over, right? So this is how, for security we convert this, and the first thing is security, and second thing is to save the bandwidth. So what is the saving of bandwidth? Now whenever we convert this into bytes, right, so if you are sending this as a character, what happens is over the network character stream can be done, but character stream, you know that character stream is a higher level than compared to the byte stream, right? That's why always all the messages whatever you want to pass over the network should be converted to bytes, because byte transmission is more faster and more less load taken than compared to a character stream passage, where you are actually saving your bandwidth of your network. So even for that we use something called conversion of your object into bytes, which we call it as serialization, right? So there are so many cases which you will get. You'll get so many other situations once you enter. It all depends on the project you are working, right? And anyways, this is also called as a protocol, right? You will understand the word called protocol. Protocols will be different. Protocols will be having like connection protocols or messaging protocols or history protocols, right? You will understand these things when we enter into some servlets and all, where these things at that moment you will understand better how the message is being passed, right? Okay, so yeah, I hope that so that is what you wanted, right, Ron?
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, fine, sure. so let's move on now, and let us see one step ahead of this serialization, which is so we have seen something to serialize something, and if you don't want to serialize a part of or some of your variables, you use something called transient, right? Now let us create one more class, right? What we'll do is we'll create one more class and we'll use the same file. It is just an add-on to the same files. Okay, you'll be getting these situations in your real-time applications, right? You'll not be getting this simple. So I'll be creating one more class and I'll use that class variable over here, right? So let me create a class over here. Let me call it as CLS some FB support, some class. So in this class, let me place it here. So let's say I have two things, which is string, right? And let us say here I have something called profile name, some message, right? And let us say I'm taking as logged in date, something, right? So I've taken two variables in here. So now what I want to use is, I want to use this separate class as a separate variable in here. So it means I'll be creating something called public CLS FB support, right? I'll just create a variable for this, which is, let us say the variable name is same, which is LOBJ support is equal to null as such, where what I want is, I don't want to give all the let me just remove this to be more clear. Yeah, it's clear now. So I don't want to pass all the message variables in a single class, but I want to divide the data into different classes. So what I have done here is, I've just taken few username password in one class, right, let us say, and in another class I created something called profile name and logged in date, and I'm using this class in here, right, as a separate variable. Now whenever I serialize this part, right, which means it should serialize all the variables whatever are not transient, and it should also serialize the whole class, which is nothing but a CLS FP support, right? But here there is a condition that whatever you want to serialize in between a serializable class, even those classes should implement a serialization interface, which means even this support class should implement serializable token, serializable interface. Until and unless it is, I'll show you, if we don't use this implementation of interface, what happens, I'll show you once we are done with how it works, right? Now, so now we have a class which is FB login, we have two direct variables, and we have a class variable which is a CLS FB support class variable. Now get back here. So in this part, so we were creating something which is a direct variables. Now let's create something for LOBJ support, which is, first I have to instantiate that class before serializing, right? Because if you see here, initially I've made it null. So if I made it null, which means this is just a variable of this class, but I have to instantiate in order to initialize these variables, right? Now let's go and see LOBJ CLS support dot let's say profile name is equal to, let us say that root tree, let's say something in here, right? And in the same way, just give obj dot LOBJ support dot logged in date, let us say logged in date, let us say just give some 25th May something, right? We just gave some date, right? So here you can see that these are the direct variables of CLS FB login, and through FB login we have created a new instance of FB support and we have initialized them, right? And anyways, the remaining part of the program will be same, because we are working on a direct object called CLS FB login, right? So let me just run this up. So if I run this, yeah, so you can see that, yeah, object is being serialized. Now whenever we deserialize now, right, so this part is a serialization part. Whenever we deserialize something, now we are getting the whole object into something called CLS FB login object or a variable. Now here what I can do is, I can create one more sysout for obj dot, right, LOBJ CLS support, because internally whenever we deserialize this packet, internally what it does, it will instantiate this, it will assign the object whatever we have actually created in here, because that is how a message or a packet will be saved in something called fb packet.serialization file, right? Let's go back and just say dot we have some profile name, right? Let us print that, and let's print something called logged in date, right? Logged in date. So just to differentiate, let me just create some pattern here, yeah. So we are checking out the same thing, but only thing is we are just moving into some nested class here, right? Let me run this, yeah. You can see here that, so these are some things which belongs to direct FB login and root tree, and these are something which we have used a support class to pass some more information here, right? So that is why. So this serialization classes, these two classes, if you have these two classes, how to serialize, this will work for anything. This will work for anything as such. Serialization and deserialization for mapping the objects and the buffer, and the same way buffer and the object, right? Where we have sent something called nested classes or nested objects as such, where even those nested classes are using interface called serialization and implementing it, right? And let us check out if we don't do implement serializable here, right? So if I don't use implement serializable here and I'm using it as directly, but during design time you may not get any error here, right? You can see here I'm not getting any problem here, right? I'm not getting anything that this is not implementing serialization, so you cannot use this. No, I'm not getting any issue over here, because this is something which will be checked in runtime, right? Because whenever you create a class here, right, it should be serializable class. This will be checked during runtime. Now let's go back and see whether it can be serialized. If I run this up, you can see here it gave some error here. So this is something where, let me just out, okay, let me just say it as ERR to print it in red as such, right? You can see here it directly gave something like it is not accepting this class. So this is something which is not acceptable, which is CLS support, which is under some package here, right? So what does it mean? So it will give you something like, directly like this is something which is not supportive in here. Then obviously why it is not supportive is because of we are not implementing that serializable class. If you are not implementing that, which means if you don't implement some marker class here, which means your JVM will never know what to do with this class, right? But you are trying to convert this into a bytes, which is not allowed at all. So that's why it just says this, right? So just implement serializable interface, right? And then try to do anything here now. Object serialized, right? So this is done in this way to serialize, use of serialization and deserialization of two different classes, right? Now let's check off how whether this arrays, we can use any arrays or collections in here to persist the bytes, right? Let me just take something in here in this class. Let me take an array list, let us say. So anyways, you will understand I don't want to take a lower one called arrays, because we won't be in real time, we will be using collections to send some bigger data over the network, right? So I don't want to take arrays now, because arrays is something which you may not use, but collections you may use, right? So just I'll be using one token called array list here. I'll explain you complete collection array list, how it works and how exactly it is working principle, right? And what exactly the order and everything in when we come to collections, right? Let me take something called array list of some string, and let me call it as lobj some let some items is equal to null. So what my intention is, I want to save multiple things in here in a single entity, and I want to see whether those entities, right, are persistent or not. As of now, what we have seen is, we have seen something which is direct variables. Username is a direct variable, password is a direct variable, which is saving only one data, right? And but now we are seeing something on array list which will save multiple data in one variable, and we have to see whether all those things are persisted in serialization class. So persisted is nothing but the arrangement of bytes is done as such, it will be mapped again to the corresponding variables, right? Let's go back and just fill this up. So yeah, so here let's create something called obj.lobj dot, we have something called lobj. Okay, let me just give array list as some naming convention arrlst, right? Go back and just say larrlst dot, we'll add some items here, some things like, let us say mango, right? We'll add more items, right? Let us say banana, right? let's say something I can find any and let us say some 1 2 3 4, right? Anything. I just want to insert something. Yeah, so now in this FP support we have created one more array list here, and I'm adding something which is some details in here, right? Now let's go back to deserialize and let us remap them. Now how do we remap them is like this. Let us take an array list here, right, as string, right? And what we have to do is, let us say this is some array deserialized items, let us say, is equal to, I have to map cls dot lo to deserialize support dot lar items, let's say, right? I'm just taking the LR list items directly and I'm mapping into my local one. Now let's loop it out for each string in a sys out of. So I'll explain you all these things when we come to array list, right? I just want to show you something which is array list. Array list here is we are saving multiple data in one entity, which is nothing but your LAR LST item, which is array list, right? And what I'm doing here is I'm just taking, after deserializing, we are just taking that variable as an local array list, and I'm just looping out to read each and every item as such, right? Now let's go back and run this up. Yeah, we got something called null. Yeah, why we got null is because we are not instantiating our array or array list. We have to say dot lar array list is equal to new array list. So until unless you instantiate. So this is again the same case as such in arrays, right? If you want to define any array and if you don't instantiate, obviously you can't use that array to initialize variables, right? So that is our second rule of our arrays, which is after declaration of array you have to instantiate of array. So we have declared an array list here, and you have to instantiate. So we have to do the instantiation and then initialization. Let's save this up and run this. Yeah, so it says object serialized this object. Let's go back to deserialization and run this. Yeah, so you can see here, so each and everything, all the internal data which is saved in different entity cache variables, right, are persisted as we have mentioned in that, right? Even this can happen actually. So this is how we use serialization and deserialization in Java to actually send over the messages or save it in files. And if you want to save the files as such, no one understands, right? You can save in this way.
Srinath, this is Purush.
Yeah, Purush, yeah, please go on.
Srinath, you have not instantiated the array list, right? I understand that is why it displayed null, but
Yeah.
It should have listed tree 1 2 3 other things, right? Like, I mean, we have not instantiated only for array list, but why did not serialize the other stuff? Like,
I didn't get your question. So during serialization you're talking, or deserialization?
no, during the serialization.
Okay, during serialization I'm instantiating my array list, right?
So can you comment that out?
Okay.
And
Mhm.
then run this now.
Okay, if I run this up, yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
now we have. I understand that we have not instantiated
Uh-huh.
array list,
Mhm.
but just because we have not instantiated, why it is not serializing like tree 1 2 3 today, those kind of stuff?
Because we have to actually see, again it comes to exception handling, right? Because whenever you get an exception here, it directly went to exception here. It is not calling this function, right? That is why it will not. Yeah, you're right. If I do something called exception handling here, right, it will skip this part, right? It will skip this part and remaining part will be serialized. Okay, let us do that. Yeah, so you understood, Purush? I hope you understood that.
Yeah,
right?
I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so that's what is happening. So if I do in this way, right, now it is correct. Now what we are doing is, so whatever exception happens here, we are just handling here, but we are not stopping this part to actually serialize, right? Now if I run this up, right, now you can see that, right, object is serialized.
Yeah, I got it. I did not realize that null is from exception error.
Yeah.
I got it now.
Okay, fine, sure. Okay, so that is what is, and obviously if you go back and see, right, this items, so before this you have to check whether your array list is not equal to null, otherwise it will again throw you error, right? If it is not equal to null, just check this, right? I'm sorry, right? So now obviously you will be getting null over here. If I run this, now you are right, you will be getting only these things, okay, and you won't be getting that. Yeah. Okay, fine. So any more questions in any of the sections of file? So we are done with complete file things.
Yeah, I have a
Sure, Ron, go on.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Could you go back to the serializable where you have the for each, the enhanced for loop?
This part?
I think you have an enhanced for loop that I'm not sure if it's in the serializable or
Okay, deserialization. Okay, you're talking about this?
Deserialize. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So correct me if I'm wrong. What you're doing here is you're iterating through the list of items in the array list.
Yep.
And then are you printing out each as a string? Is that what's happening there?
Yeah. I'm taking each element because you can see here my array list is holding only strings, right? So that's why I'm able to take each and every string of my array list and I'm printing the same.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry,
Got it.
it is something which is, it just gave the name, so you can just change it up, right? The name, it just took some variable as string, so I just left because I was concentrating more on showing the data, right, Ron?
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, fine. So any more doubts, guys? Jomi, Ujjwala, like everything is fine? Vamsi, Surender? Yeah.
Srinath,
Yeah.
is this L object class FB support?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it coming from? I just lost the track of it.
Okay, so can you see here we have created a separate class when we started class, right? Separate class.
Is it a static class?
I'm sorry,
No, it's not a static class.
it is not a
Static.
no, it is not a static class, right? We have created something which is everything is a object class here, object variable here.
So why is it showing the blue in a blue blue color, all the letters?
This one,
If you go back to the serializable,
if we go back to serializable, yeah, this one you mean?
yeah.
Because this is a variable of this class, right? See, how I'm accessing this object is through this FB login. Now what does it conveys here is, see, if I create something called CLS FB support here, right? FB support as some, let us say, obj some 2 is equal to new obj something, right? Now if I do something called lobj2 dot some variable, let us say LR item some null, let me just take it as null, right? You can see it blue. Why? Because this is a legal variable or legal object variable of this class, and I'm actually accessing through an object, so that's why it will show as a blue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Sure. Fine. Okay. Okay, fine, guys. So I'll be sharing this anyways, right? Let's go through this, and I hope if you get any. So okay, let me just uncomment this so that whenever you run this, just try to comment it out or uncomment. Just tweak these programs, and if you get any sort of doubt, just ask me. Okay. Fine. Let's move on. So okay, no, not a problem. Let me just close this. Okay. So yeah, so we'll see two different topics again today, which is like math class and strings, because these are something which we'll be using in real times. Math. First we'll check out a math class. So math class is something which provides some mathematical operation direct methods like sum up, or something like rounding some values, right? All these things you don't have to do it your own, right? If you want to sum up two things, you can have something. If you want to get some something like minimum of or maximum of, we have all the inbuilt methods or static methods in a math class, right? We'll just see some few of them, because you may know most of them, but let me just touch upon a few things, or I'll give you the complete list of what exactly we have under math, right? Let me just create that. So let's create a direct program instead of having some theory in it. Let me just close this project now, or let me just create a new project, Java project, and just say maths something, right? So let me create class here, cls maths. Yeah, so let me create a main over here. So math actually is a class under java.lang, right? So whenever you create any math class here, you will be getting that java.lang, which is math. You can see math is under java.lang package, right? So you have many methods here, which is first one. If you want to check out, we'll check out with minimum. So what it gives is minimum of two different numbers, right? So whenever we want to check, right, so what do is we check something called we check which one is greater or lesser, and then we follow at least two different statements to check which is minimum or maximum, right? So instead of that, you can directly go for math, because math is a direct class in your Java package, which is much faster than the logic which we use. We'll see all the methods, then you will understand why this is a much faster one, right? So that's why I'm just taking this math class as a separate topic, right? So you can just give anything here, like 4 5, and just say all dot something, right? And obviously this will return you some minimum of max, minimum or maximum of two numbers, right? Where we have given some double values, and this minimum or minimum method will return you. You can see here it will return you a double, and it can take any double value, because double is I can say biggest ever variable, which will cover everything. All the integers, all the floating variables will come under double, right? Double is 8 bytes, where it can save both the integral and the decimal values till 8 bytes, and 8 bytes is the highest number which we can have in Java, right? It gives that support. If you run this, you will see the lowest possible value of that. Right? In the same way, let me just give different methods here, right, without running them, because you know what you'll get. If you have min, you also have something called max, right? Max of two numbers. Some you can just take just integral values. It will take up, right? It will give the max of them, right? And you have something called math of some constants, like pi. You know the pi, right? So for some mathematical calculations, or for interest calculations, or for some some shape calculations of perimeters and all, you have some constants directly being given here, like pi, right? Let me just print this out. You have something called pi over here, right? And right, and you have the interest component. If you remember the interest component, we have math dot e, exponential interest component, right, where the pi value is nothing but 21%, which is 3 dot something, and here e is something which is used for interest calculations, right? And then you have something called math dot random. So this is the most used one, random. So the random is a internal static method of math, which will give a random values or random output in between your 0 and 1. 0 and 1, that's it. It won't give random values more than them, no. Even if you loop on, let me just loop on this for, let us say, I less than some 20, right? Let me just give it here random. Let me just say this out of my random over here, right? So if you want some these number of values, right, let me just create a pattern, right? You can see, let me run this up. Now you can see here, right, it will give random values only in between 0 and 1. So maximum possible, you can see, is it may go to 1 and not not beyond them. So that is what is a math.random. And obviously if you want to get, let us say if you want to get a value from 1 to 1000, so obviously you can randomly just do some based on some logic, you can do either 10 or 100, right, where you can see that you will be getting some 2-digit numbers, random values, right? Yeah, you can do. Again, it will give you 1-digit or 2-digit random values, right? So that's how is a random works. And you have this random is something which is internal to math class. You have one more random class which is direct random class, right? Let me give that. Let me create a separate method here. Let's say void, let's say generate randoms, right? And let me take this as type match, right? Yeah, you have something called direct random class which is under java.util, right? So this random is basically used to calculate random numbers in between your own highest and lowest values, right? Where this random class will give you random numbers in between 0 and the maximum possible values you give. Let me just take it as lobjran is equal to, you just say new random. So this is a class where all the internal methods are nothing but the class object variable of this, right? Let me just loop it out for, let me just say I want it for some like 1000, right? So what we'll do is we'll just say this out. So we have some internal method called dot next int of, so what should be the maximum possible value. So here you have to give some maximum. Let me just give 1000 here. Let me just take some 3, not 1000 there, or just say 5 different, right? Next random. So what it will take from 0 to 999. This is the maximum boundary we are mentioning, right? So we'll get a random numbers from 0 to 999, right? And this is how we use random. So let me just print that out. So let me make it a static. Generate random numbers. So run this up. You can see here that we'll get numbers in between 0 and the maximum possible numbers we're getting. So this is how we have two different things, which is random, math.random, right? Where for, let us say, so where we'll be using maximum, this is, let us say you are actually generating something like you want a random 4-digit numbers always to be generated in combination of different numbers, right? You can directly go for math.random and just multiply with 10,000, right? You will always get something in at least 4 digits or less than that, but not more than 4, right? So you can just trim out all the decimal values and obviously you'll be getting that. Or if you want to be more specific, that you want to get even less than 10 or more than 10 and different random values between your 0 and some bigger value, then just go for something called util package random, right? It will give you a random values as mentioned for the bigger one, right? So that is what is a random. And you have some methods called maths dot you have something called square root, right, which is sqrt. So the square root will give you the square root of something, right? If you give some 100, it will give you a square root of this. And also you have something called cube root here, which is brt. You can see cbrt or something. Let's say 64. It will give you the true it will give you the actual true square root and true cube root of your values, right? And then you have something called round or absolute of something, absolute of double or float or log anything. So what is absolute here? So let me just take absolute of, let us say, -3. So we have already learned this in our primary classes, which is absolute means if you give negative value, it will give you positive. If you give positive, it is a direct positive. We have learned that in that way, right? But what exactly this absolute means is, what is the distance between 0 and the number you have mentioned here. Even if you say -3, the distance between 0 and -3 is nothing but 3. So that is what your absolute value will give, right? Will give something which is a non-negative, which is obviously the distance will never be a negative one, right? Yeah, so that's why even if you give negative or a positive one, your absolute will always give you something which is a positive. This is something which is absolute value. And obviously you have something called round. So based on round, you have few different methods, which is you have something called ceil, ceil. So what does it ceil mean? So when you give, let us say I'm giving some 2.3, see. So if you give ceil of some decimal number, it will give you the next higher number of this. Even if you are just taking 2.01, the output will be the next higher one, which is something like 3. That is nothing but a ceil here, right? Let me run this. Right, you can see that a ceil will always give you the next number for this, right? So that is a ceil. So you have, in the same way, you have something called math.floor, right, where even if you give any bigger number, let me just give 12.999, right? So here if you round this number, obviously we know that it will be giving 13. If you run this up, you can see 12, which is floor. Floor will always give you the next low value of this. So in between 12.99 will come in between 12 and 13. It will pick the lowest one. That is nothing but your floor, right? And you also have something called sysout of math dot round, right, which will give you the true translation of your round. Let me just give 2.3, right, and in the same way let me give 12.99. yeah, let me run this. You can see 2, which is when you round 2.3, obviously you get 2, and when you round 12.99 you get 13. So these are true rounding we have, right, which is round. So that is what a ceil, floor and round, right? So they may be used for some during calculation of interest, right? You may want to trim up or trim down, right? Or in the same way round up or round down directly, where you are just trimming up, and you may use round to actually round to get a true rounding average, right? So it will give you a true even if you have something called, let us say 4.6, right? Obviously if you run, it will actually turn it actually to the true rounding, right? Now you have few more things, like you have all the you have like all the trigonometric functions. So you have something called cosine. We have cosine here, right? Cos h here, right, where you can give the angle of some values here. Now this will be used mostly on some graphical things. And if you are familiar with or if you have any knowledge on Android, right, if in future, so in Android, whatever maps or something you see, or let us say compass, right? So where you are actually seeing, so nowadays you are getting a quick view of a new feature of in smartphones, right, where if you fix your location with GPS, and if you actually move your mobile phone, right, or smartphone, what it will get all the nearest possible things like banks or ATMs and all. So how it is getting? So based on your location, longitude and latitude you are standing, right, what it does is, so even those banks and all will be actually registered with your GPS systems. Let us say you are using something called Navtech, not we are using, let us say our smartphone is tied up and it is using some Navtech GPS systems, right? What it will do, whatever is there in your scope, right? Like if you are standing at one place, whatever is nearby will be shown in your mobile. And how they are showing is, they are actually taking some scope. The scope is nothing but your angle. Now you can use something called some angle to actually calculate what exactly are nearby. You can do that, right? So that is nothing but your graphical things which you are using in Android. And anyways, you can in Android we usually write something called Java code to actually execute everything, right? Each and everything are actually code written, so you can use them in there. You have something called math dot, you have sine, you can see you have sine, you have tangent, over here, right? You have all the possible trigonometric functions here. And you also have something called math of power of what? I can just say
Srinath, this is Purush.
Yeah,
What?
Purush. Yeah, Purush.
Srinath, what will be the outcome of math.cast 45?
Cosine you mean? Yeah, let me just print out.
Yeah, cosine.
Let me just print even this one. This is out. Tan. Let me just break this up. So power also used. Okay. So it will be 1 and some 0. 1 by 2. Right? It will give you the right value of tangent and cosine. Right, Purushottam?
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. And power will give you obviously the power of 2 power 2, right? Okay, I didn't print it. Sorry. It will give you the power of that, and it will give the true power of anything. Let us say if you are taking the bigger values, right? Something here and some bigger values of 6 or some power. It will give you the true translation of that. What is happening? Yeah. It will give you the exact power of layer on it or something. Okay, because we are getting something which is E. E is nothing but 10 power. So this much of value, and you have 10 power 19. So that is a bigger one. So just getting a value in E, right? So that is nothing but your power, which is a power. Okay. And then you have log. I think you know the base log, right? Log is nothing but on which base you are working, which is like you have something called log 2 and log 10, right? Which is math dot log. Yeah, log and log 10. Log 10 is basically what we basically use. Let me just give you a log 12, maybe log 10 base 12 and log direct log. Let me run this up. You can see, oh sorry, right? Yeah. Yeah, so here you can see that you are getting a log 10 of this and you are getting a log 2 of this. So we have seen something called log 2. You have to calculate these things using your bitmaps, right? What is a bitmap? It's an operator in Java, which is like if you do bitmaps for this 2, right, where you have to split this into 2 part 0, 2 power 1, 2 power, right? So all those combinations you will be getting directly in log, right? If you give the bigger number, right, any number of log, so log is basically log 2, and if you want to mention anything you can mention direct log 10. You have these two, which is actually mapping your bits. But anyways, this is something which is used in device manufacturing, where your trigger will happen based on your logging, right? Like you switch on your power. So internally, if it is a smart good, right, so it will calculate based on your thing, which is a bitwise operators, right. It will apply some bitwise and or, and it will give you a final signal. So in there you'll use these blocks, right. I hope these are the few things which you have in math, right, which will be using in your real time. And this random, I hope you will be using this random mostly, right, where you will be using either this random function which is in math, right, or the random function which is in util, right. So you will be using them in real time. So these are the few things which you have under your math class, right. You have many things as such, but these are something which you'll be using mostly in your real times, right. So that is all about is a math, and which comes under something called java.lang package. And you can see here, whenever we actually import lang, right, it will not be imported. Why? We don't have separate statement for lang package in Eclipse. I'm saying why? Because your lang package is by default it will import lang package, because language package is a one which contains everything you are writing. So that's why it is imported as such. Whenever, even if you write something under your lang or not, it is a main package which will be imported automatically. And if you go for some other things like array list or separate util packages or threading or anything, right, you have to actually import them. You have to make sure that in this class that library or that package you want to use, which means in this class you are actually exposing the class called random class, under which you are using some few things to do some task, right. So that is what is about math class, and I hope you understood. I know I know that you may be knowing most of things in here, but I hope you have learned something new in this math. Okay. Yeah. Let's go back to next topic, which is strings here. Let me just give some intro for this, right, and we'll learn few things in these strings. So why I'm taking the strings separately is, even the strings is nothing but, we say that strings is something which is an array of characters, right, where we are actually accumulating all the characters and we are forming a string. It is a basic definition which we learn, but in Java it is not the case. The string is something which is an object here, right. Whatever we mention, all the characters, right, it will take it as a set of object, right. And the string is basically defined with a double quotes. If you say hello, right, space how are you, right, so this is not something which is accumulated with the characters. What it does is, it will take everything as an object first. It will take everything as an object, but internally we have some function called index of and all. I'll be touching upon all the possible internal internal static methods of them. So at that time, what it will do is, it will completely convert this object into something called array of characters, and then it will apply some operations. But basically string is something which is an object in Java and not the definition. So basically, in books and all we say that it's a direct array, but actually string is an object, and we have something called string class. This is a string class, actually string class to create a string, right. So that is a small thing about string. And basically when we were learning something on files, we just said that our string is immutable. So let me just explain you what is a property called immutable. I've already explained you in files as per the file perspective, but let me give you something on string perspective here, where we call the string as an immutable token, right. And the immutability, the feature is same. Now what do we call immutable is, for strings there will be a separate memory being created in heap. So that is nothing but a constant pool. So so many guys call it different names. They call it a separate memory pool, or a free pool, or a constant pool, right. We call it as, basically we call it as a constant pool, or we can also say free pool, right. Or we can also say something called method pool. So we use this, right. we use this in the either constant pool or free pool. Now why do we have a separate memory pool for string? Because string don't have a definite size. All the data types, integer, float, whatever you take, have got definite size in it. So whenever you are defining int I, and if it is been allocated in either a stack or a heap, right? So stack or heap knows that yes, this is something which have got a definite finite size, and it can allocate that finite size. But string is something which is unlimited size one. It can grow as much as your processor or your hard disk can bear. It can grow till that point. So that's why we have something called a separate memory being created in heap itself, which is nothing but a free pool memory or a constant pool memory, right? Yeah, so that is what is nothing but a different memory being created in a pool, right? And so we said it is something which is immutable. Now we'll see what is immutable, and what should be used to make actually immutable to mutable things, and what are the different tokens we have in strings, and what are the different static methods we have, and what are the optimized static methods we should use, and what we should not use, like operators like plus or is equal to or something to actually do some operations on strings and all, right? We'll check these things tomorrow. Fine. Yeah, we'll see them, and we'll just see the complete strings topic, because this is something which we'll be using mostly, and I hope you should know what are the internal methods we have, what exactly we can do with strings and all, right? So once this is done, maybe we'll move on to packages, right? We'll just see a quick look on package, what is a package and all, and then we'll move on to the next big topic, collections, right? Collection framework. And guys, you will be having fun in collection. It's a very interesting topic, collections, right? And yeah, we'll see what it is. Fine guys, so let me wind up here, and we'll just take up this strings part tomorrow. Fine, and we'll move on.
Okay.
So any
Thank you.
doubts still here? Okay guys, okay.
Nope.
Fine then, so let me share the video, just go through them. Okay, if you have any doubts, let me just clear tomorrow. Fine. Okay guys, bye bye. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.